Hello, friends. Doubt is a quiet room. The door is locked from the inside. You hold the only key, but your hands tremble, and you've forgotten which way it turns. The walls are smooth, offering no purchase. The silence is a weight pressing down, and in it, a single question echoes. A question you are almost too afraid to whisper. Can I still be loved? It is the great fear that coils beneath the surface of disbelief, that our imperfections, our questions, our inability to simply believe, have placed us outside the circle of grace, beyond the reach of a love we are not even sure is there. We are told faith is a fortress, a high wall against the chaos. But what if your fortress has crumbled? What if you are standing in the ruins, smoke stinging your eyes, and you see no king, no banner, no army coming? It is a journey into the heart of the Shadowlands, where the greatest saints and sinners of antiquity walked. They were not strangers to this quiet room. In fact, many of them built it, lived in it, and it was there in the suffocating silence that they had their most profound encounters. Our journey begins not on a sunlit hill of certainty, but on a dark and dusty road with a man who is running for his life. His name is Jacob. From the moment of his birth, he was grasping, clutching the heel of his twin brother Esau, as if trying to pull him back and take his place. He lived his life as a supplanter. He tricked his starving brother into selling his birthright for a bowl of lentil soup. He disguised himself with goatskins, deceiving his blind, dying father, Isaac, to steal the blessing meant for his firstborn brother. He is not a hero. Esau, a man of the field, a powerful hunter, has sworn to kill him. So Jacob runs. He runs from his brother's righteous fury, from the family he has fractured, and from the man he sees in his own reflection. He is utterly alone. The sun bleeds out across the horizon, and the wilderness of Canaan grows cold. He has nothing, no companions, no provisions, just the clothes on his. He finds a stone, a hard, unforgiving piece of the desolate landscape, and lays his head down to sleep. Imagine that sleep. It is not the peaceful rest of the righteous. It is the fitful, haunted sleep of the fugitive. Every rustle of leaves is his brother's footstep. Every shadow is the glint of a knife. His conscience is a storm, and his bed is a rock. This is the lowest point. This is a man you would not expect God to visit. You would expect judgment. You would expect silence. You would expect the emptiness he probably felt he deserved. But that is not what happens. In the depths of his exhausted, guilty sleep, Jacob dreams. The dream is not of judgment, but of connection. He sees a great ladder, a stairway, set up on the earth, and its top reaches to heaven. And upon this ladder, angels of God are ascending and descending. They are not static, heavenly statues. They are active, moving, trafficking between worlds. The dream is telling him something profound. Even here, in this place of exile and fear, the way is not closed. There is traffic between heaven and earth. And then, a voice, a presence standing beside him, the Lord speaks. He does not begin with, "I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father and the God of Isaac." He connects Jacob not to his immediate shameful actions, but to his lineage, to a covenant, to a promise that existed long before he did. Then comes the promise, a promise that seems impossibly grand for a man sleeping on a stone. "The land on which you lie I will give to you and your offspring. Your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and in you and your a purpose that seems to contradict everything Jacob is. And then the promise becomes deeply, achingly personal. "Behold, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. I will not leave you." For a man who has made himself an outcast, who has fled from everyone he knows, these are the most powerful words in existence. They are not words he has, but everything has changed. He is afraid. But it is a new kind of fear. It is not the fear of his brother, it is the fear of the holy. "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it," he says. "How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven." The man who saw only a desolate wilderness now sees a cathedral. The man who felt only abandonment now feels an awesome presence. He takes the stone. He transforms the instrument of his discomfort into an object of worship. He renames the place. It was called Luz, which means separation. He calls it Bethel, which means house of God. In one night, a place of separation became a place of divine dwelling. Jacob's story doesn't end there. He doesn't become a perfect man overnight. He goes on to be deceived himself by his uncle Laban. He works for 20 years, endure the memory of that promise, that declaration, "I will not leave you," sustains him. Fast forward 20 years, Jacob is returning home. He is no longer a lone fugitive. He is a wealthy man with 2 wives, children, and vast flocks. But the shadow of his past looms large. The final debt is coming due. Esau, his brother, is coming to meet him. And he is not alone. He has 400 men. All his wealth, all his family, cannot protect him from the consequences of that long, argo deception. He does what he has always done. He schemes. He divides his family and flocks into 2 groups, hoping that if one is attacked, the other might escape. He sends lavish gifts ahead, trying to appease his brother's anger. He prays a desperate, honest prayer. "I am not worthy of the least of all the deeds of steadfast love." He admits, before pleading, "Please deliver me from the hand of my brother." Finally, after sending his family across the river Jabbok, he is left alone again, just as he was 20 years before, alone in the dark, on the precipice of his greatest fear. And in the darkness, a man appears. We are not told where he comes from. He is simply there, and he begins to dust and sweat and sinew. Jacob, the heel grabber, the schemer, the man who has wrestled his way through life with cunning and deceit, is now in a raw physical struggle he cannot win through trickery. He fights with everything he has. As the dawn begins to break, the man knows he cannot overpower Jacob without revealing his full nature. He touches Jacob's hip, and with a simple touch dislocates it. He clings. He will not let go. The man says, "Let me go, for the day has broken." And Jacob, breathless, in agony, speaks the most defiant and faithful words of his life. "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Think of this moment. He is injured. He is facing his vengeful brother in a few hours. And he has spent all night fighting an opponent he cannot defeat. And his demand is not for safety, not for victory over Esau. He is demanding it face to face, from the very source of the blessing itself. The man asks him, "What is your name?" It is a piercing question. To say his name is to confess his identity. Jacob, the supplanter, the deceiver. He has to own it in the face of this divine power. He has to admit who he is, and he says it. Jacob, he confesses. And in that moment of confession, the stranger gives him a new name. His identity is remade. Not because he was perfect, but because he wrestled, because he engaged, because in his desperation and his doubt and his fear, he held on and refused to let go. He named the place Peniel, saying, "For I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered." He walks away from that encounter with 2 things, a blessing and a limp. He will walk with a limp for the rest of his life. A reminder that his greatest strength was found in the moment he was crippled, the moment he stopped relying on his own cunning and simply clung to the divine. The man who doubted he would survive the night, the man who was sure his past had come to destroy him, was given a new identity. He was loved, not for his purity, but for his persistence. He was blessed, not because he was worthy, but because he wrestled his doubt. His story tells us that the journey of faith is not a peaceful stroll. It is often a wrestling match in the dark. It is about holding on when every instinct tells you to run. It is about demanding a blessing, even when you feel you deserve a curse. The limp is as important as the new name. It tells us that our wounds, our doubts, our struggles do not have to be signs of our abandonment. They can become the very testament to our encounter. So the question is, in the midst of the struggle, will we cling on? Will we demand a blessing? Jacob's story is a story of love finding a man on the run. But what about when you are not running? What about when you are standing still, surrounded by friends who believe, and you are the only one who cannot? Our journey takes us now to a locked room, not the metaphorical room of doubt, but a literal one, a small, stuffy upper room in Jerusalem. Days before, their leader, their hope, the man they believed was the Messiah, had been arrested, tortured, and crucified. They had seen his body broken and lifeless. They are disciples in hiding. They have barred the door, not just against the Roman soldiers or the temple authorities, but against a world that has shattered their reality. In this room of fear, a story begins to circulate. A wild, impossible. "He is risen," they whisper. Hope, a fragile and dangerous thing, begins to flicker in the room. But one of them is not there. His name is Thomas. We don't know where he was. Perhaps he was simply overwhelmed by grief, seeking solitude. Perhaps he was the only one brave enough to go out and buy bread. When he returns, the room is buzzing with this impossible news. We have seen the Lord, they tell him. Their faces are light. He sees their hope, and perhaps he sees it as a form of madness, a collective delusion born of unbearable grief. He was a practical man, a man who needed things to make sense, and what they were saying defied all logic, all experience. A dead man does not simply get up and walk away, so he says the words that will define him for 2,000 years. Unless I see in his hands the mark of the nails, and place my finger into the mark of the... It is a demand for tangible, physical, undeniable proof. He is not content with second-hand testimony. He needs to touch the wounds. He needs to put his own hands into the broken places to believe that healing is possible. For a week he lives with this. He is back in the group, but he is separate. He is surrounded by their newfound joy, but he is an island of doubt in a sea of faith. Imagine how isolating that must have been. To be a week later, they are all together again in the same locked room, and this time Thomas is with them. And suddenly, though the doors are locked, Jesus is there. He stands among them. "Peace be with you," he says. And then he turns his attention to Thomas. He singles him out. He does not rebuke him. He does not shame him. He does not say, "Thomas, why is your faith so weak?" He looks at the man who demanded proof. Do not disbelieve, but believe. It is an invitation to touch the evidence of suffering, the proof of death, as the very proof of life. He offers his wounds as the bridge for Thomas's doubt. The very things Thomas needed to see to believe are the things Jesus offers without hesitation. The story doesn't tell us if Thomas actually touched him. The text implies the invitation was enough. In the face of this, the presence of a God who would stoop to meet his demand is all the proof he needs. "My Lord and my God," he cries out. It is the most direct, powerful, and complete confession of faith in the entire Gospel of John. The doubter, the skeptic, the man who refused to believe, is the one who makes the ultimate statement of belief. Jesus then says to him, "Have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." Thomas's story is crucial because it sanctifies the question. It makes doubt a part of the journey, not a deviation from it. It tells us that honest doubt is not the opposite of faith. The opposite of faith is apathy, indifference. Doubt is a form of engagement. It is the cry of a mind and heart that want to believe, that need the truth to be real. Thomas was not loved in spite of his doubt. His doubt was not a barrier to Jesus. It was the very thing that prompted one of the most intimate and personal encounters in the entire narrative. Jesus came back for the one he entered a locked room, to find the one who felt locked out. This story gives us permission to bring our whole selves to the table of faith, including our questions, our skepticism, and our demand for reality. It assures us that we will not be turned away. It offers its own wounds as proof that it is real, that it has endured the worst the world can offer, and that it is strong enough to bear the weight of our disbelief. But what if your doubt is not intellectual, like Thomas's, but born from a place of profound personal failure? What if you haven't just doubted, but you have actively betrayed the one you claim to love? We journey now to another scene of fear, but this one is not in a locked room. A man is there trying to warm himself against the biting chill of the Jerusalem night. His name is Peter, and he is in hell. Just hours before, in the warm intimacy of a shared meal, Jesus had looked at him and said, "Simon, Simon, behold, Satan demanded to have you, that he might sift you like wheat. But I have prayed for you that your faith may not fail, and when you have turned again, strengthen your brothers." Peter, always impetuous, always... Jesus had looked at him with a deep sadness and delivered a prophecy that must have felt like a slap. "I tell you, Peter, the rooster will not crow this day, until you deny 3 times that you know me." Now the prophecy is unfolding like a nightmare. Jesus has been arrested. He is inside the high priest's house, undergoing a sham trial, and Peter is in the courtyard, pretending to be a bystander. He is trying to be invisible. Peter's heart seizes. "Woman, I do not know him." The words are out before he can stop them. They taste like ash in his mouth. A little later, someone else recognizes him. "You also are one of them," Peter says. "Man, I am not." The denial is sharper this time, more desperate. An hour passes, an eternity. Another man insists. Certainly this man also was with him, for he is a Galilean. He is cornered. He begins to curse and to swear. Man, I do not know what you are talking about. He denies his Lord with an oath, and immediately, while he is still speaking, a rooster crows. The sound cuts through the cold night air, a shrill, piercing cry. It is the sound of his failure, the alarm clock of his own damnation. And then, the Gospel of Luke adds a devastating detail. The Lord turned and looked at just the profound, heartbreaking sadness of the prophecy fulfilled, and Peter remembers the word of the Lord, and he goes out and he weeps bitterly. This is a grief beyond measure. It is the grief of a man who has not only failed his friend, but has betrayed his God. He, the rock, the one who was supposed to be the leader, has crumbled into dust. Thomas doubted with his mind. Peter denied with his very being. The crucifixion happens. The resurrection happens. The disciples are in the locked room, and Jesus appears. But for Peter, the joy must be mixed with a toxic, burning shame. How can he look Jesus in the eye? How can he accept a forgiveness he so clearly does not deserve? The story shifts again. We are on the shore of the Sea of Galilee. Peter and some of the other disciples have gone back to what they know. Fishing, futile effort as dawn breaks. A figure stands on the beach. A man calls out to them. "Children, do you have any fish?" "No," they reply, their voices weary. "Cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some." The stranger says they do it, perhaps out of sheer exhaustion, and suddenly the net is so full of fish they cannot haul it in. In that moment of miraculous abundance, John, the beloved, he throws on his outer garment, which he had taken off for work, and plunges into the sea, swimming for the shore. He cannot wait. He has to get there. He leaves the fish, the miracle, the other disciples. He just needs to get to Jesus. He arrives on the beach, dripping and breathless, and he sees a charcoal fire, just like the one in the courtyard. The smell of the burning coals must have transported him back to the worst moment. Jesus has recreated the scene of the crime, but this time it will not be a place of denial. It will be a place of restoration. Jesus has breakfast ready for them, fish on the fire and bread. "Come and have breakfast," he says, a simple, domestic, deeply human invitation. After they have eaten, the moment of truth arrives. Jesus turns to Peter. "Simon, son of John," he says, using his old name, and Peter, stripped of all his bravado, all his self-confidence, can only say, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." There is no boasting now, just a simple, humble affirmation. Jesus says to him, "Feed my lambs." Then he asks a second time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter is hurt. Why is he asking again? "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus says, "Tend my sheep." And then, a third time, he understands now, one question for each denial. This is not a punishment. This is a reversal, a healing for every moment of betrayal by a charcoal fire. There is a moment of recommitment by a charcoal fire. Peter's answer this time is full of anguish and honesty. "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." He is broken open. He is admitting that Jesus knows his heart better than he does, that Jesus saw his love completely. He doesn't place him on probation. He doesn't say, "Peter, you can be a disciple again, but you can never be a leader." He recommissions him for the very task he had promised him. "Strengthen your brothers." Peter's story shows us that love is not contingent on our performance. It is not withdrawn in the face of our greatest failures. It actively seeks us out, recreates the scene of our deepest shame, and transforms it into a place of healing and purpose. It was the doubt of a man who looked at himself and thought, "I am unlovable. I have failed too badly. I am disqualified." And the love he encountered was not a cheap grace that ignored his failure. It was a costly grace that looked his failure right in the eye and then gave him back his calling. If you are watching this and you feel that you're past your mistakes, your betrayals have put you outside the circle of love, Peter's story is for you. The question is not whether you have failed. The question is, when you hear the voice from the shore, will you be brave enough to jump out of the boat? This journey through doubt and failure and fear is at the heart of so many of these ancient stories. If you find this exploration meaningful and you want to continue this journey with us, please consider subscribing to the channel and liking this video. It helps us reach more people who might be sitting in their own quiet rooms. But there is another kind of doubt, perhaps the most difficult of all. It is the doubt that is born in the crucible of suffering. It is the doubt that looks at a world full of pain, injustice, and random tragedy and asks, if God is good, why does this happen? If God is powerful, why doesn't he stop it? If God loves me, why am I hurting? To explore this, we must go to the land of Uz and meet a man. The story begins by telling us that Job was a blameless and upright man, one who feared God and turned away from evil. He was wealthy, respected, and had a large, loving family by every measure. He was a good man. He was the poster child for the idea that if you are good, God will bless you. Then, in a heavenly court, a figure called the Satan, which in Hebrew means the accuser, challenges this premise: does Job fear God for no reason? It is a cosmic wager. Is Job's faith genuine, or is it just a byproduct of his comfortable life? God allows the test, and in a single day, Job loses everything. His livestock are stolen or destroyed, his servants are killed, and in the most devastating blow, all 10 of his children are killed when a great wind collapses the house they were in. In an instant, his perfect life is a smoldering ruin. Job's response: naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. The accuser is not done. He argues that Job has only been tested in his possessions, not in his own body. So Job is struck with a second, more personal tragedy. Loathsome sores cover him from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. He is in constant agonizing pain. He sits in. His wife, seeing his misery, says to him, "Do you still hold fast your integrity? Curse God and die." But Job refuses. Shall we receive good from God, and shall we not receive evil? His faith, though tested to the absolute limit, still holds. Then his 3 friends arrive, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. For 7 days and 7 nights, they sit with him in silence, and their answers are simple, orthodox, and utterly wrong. They operate on the same principle as the accuser: the world is a neat, moral system. If you are suffering, you must have sinned. Job, you must have done something to deserve this. Confess your sin, and God will restore you. They mean well. They are trying to defend God's justice, but in doing so, they brutalize their suffering friend, and this is where he knows he is not a perfect man, but he knows he has not done anything to deserve this level of suffering. He begins to argue. He curses the day he was born. He longs for death, and he directs his anger and his questions not at his friends but at God. He accuses God of being his enemy, of hunting him like a lion. He demands to know the charges against him. Why did you bring me out of the womb? Would that I had died before any other. This is a raw, furious, heartbroken cry of protest. Job is putting God on trial. He is standing in the ruins of his life and screaming into the silence. Why? He maintains his innocence. He demands a hearing. He wishes for a mediator, an arbiter who could stand between him and God. He is a man wrestling with the deepest of all doubts, the doubt in God's goodness and justice. His friends are horrified. They see his words as blasphemy. He refuses to pretend to be guilty just to make sense of his suffering. He chooses the chaos of an unanswered question over the false comfort of a tidy but untrue answer. For 35 chapters, this debate rages. Job's friends offer their theological certainties, and Job counters with the raw data of his own experience. And all the while, God is silent. The silence is perhaps the greatest test of all. Job feels a storm, a force of untamable wild nature, and he does not answer Job's question, not a single one. He does not explain why Job suffered. He does not mention the wager with the accuser. Instead, he asks Job a series of questions, over 70 of them. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Have you commanded the morning since your days began? Have you entered into the springs of the sea? He speaks of the wild mountain goats, the untamable wild donkey, the powerful ostrich, the magnificent warhorse, the soaring eagle. He describes 2 great creatures, Behemoth and Leviathan, powerful, chaotic beings that are part of his world, but beyond human control. What is happening here? This is not a courtroom defense. This is a revelation of scale. God is not justified. He is showing Job that the universe is infinitely more complex, more wild, and more mysterious than Job's human-centric view of justice can comprehend. He is saying, your suffering, Job, is real and terrible, but it is happening within a cosmos so vast and a purpose so grand that you cannot possibly grasp it all from your pile of ashes. The answer to the problem of suffering is not a neat formula. The answer is and in the face of this revelation, Job's perspective shifts. His demand for answers dissolves in the face of sheer awe. I have heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you, Job says. Therefore I despise myself, and repent in dust and ashes. He is not repenting for a sin that caused his suffering. He is repenting for the smallness of his own view, for presuming he could In the end, God restores Job's fortunes, giving him twice as much as he had before. And interestingly, God rebukes Job's friends. My anger burns against you, God says to Eliphaz, for you have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has. Think about that. The friends who defended God with their neat theology are condemned, and Job, who questioned, accused, and raged against God, he would rather have our honest, raw, wrestling doubt than the platitudes of a faith that has no room for suffering. The quiet room of doubt for Job was a pile of ashes, and the door was opened not by a simple answer, but by a whirlwind. It suggests that sometimes the only adequate response to profound doubt is a profound encounter with the mystery of God himself. We have walked with the deceiver. Each of them stood in that quiet room, convinced they were alone, convinced they might be unlovable. Jacob the schemer wrestled and was renamed. Thomas the realist demanded proof and was met with an invitation. Peter the betrayer wept in shame and was restored by a question. Job the righteous sufferer screamed into the silence and was answered by a whirlwind. Their stories are not neat. They are messy, human, and saturated with doubt. It crossed the river, entered the locked room, lit the charcoal fire, and spoke from the storm. Love did not demand that they fix themselves first. It met them in their brokenness. It did not require perfect faith, but engaged with their honest questions. The thread that runs through all these narratives is this: your doubt does not disqualify you. Your questions do not put you beyond the reach. These things are not obstacles to a relationship with the divine. They are often the very context in which that relationship becomes real. So we return to where we started, to you in your quiet room. The silence may still feel heavy, the door may still seem locked, but perhaps now you can hear something new in the quiet. The echo of a wrestler's cry, the footsteps of a friend entering a locked room, the crackle of a fire on a beach, and the answer that comes rumbling back through the ages, from every flawed and broken hero of the faith, from every dark night of the soul, is a relentless, unwavering, and unconditional. Yes, the love that found them is the same love that is searching for you. It does not require you to have all the answers. It only requires you to be willing to be found. All right. That is it for today's video. If you enjoyed it,